Hey gang, welcome back to Dr. D's Health Tip of the Week. We are in crazy Boulder, Colorado, where we are in the land of the triathlete, overtrained individual, and I want to talk about the balance of exercise and what's right for you. Let's start with the two types of exercise that are out there. We basically can break them into aerobic or anaerobic. Aerobic is things like jogging. You are meant to cover a long distance while keeping your lactic acid threshold low. When you're in aerobic, air means oxygen, and you're able to keep the cell oxygenated while burning glucose so that you don't start building up lactic acid. So when we breathe in and we have adequate glucose, your breathing is going to keep up with your mitochondrial needs for oxygen, and you're going to make 38 ATP or 38 cash money units of energy to run your life, and you're not going to build up lactic acid. And this can be healthy for things like walking, but for long distance running, the whole goal is to not have lactic acid build up so I can finish the Ironman or Ironwoman without crossing the finish line going, as you'll see in some of those crazy overtrained athlete videos. So the goal is to keep lactic acid down, and that's how you do win a race. And I tell my triathletes all the time, what you're doing is totally impressive, but it's not healthy. And the reason it's not healthy is if you're doing long distance training and not getting a burst of lactic acid, this is good for winning the race or marathon, but bad for anabolism, and you'll start winding up in a catabolic state. Catabolic state is where cortisol is always spiking and you are destroying lean muscle mass. This is also why something like too much prednisone will destroy kidney, muscle, joint, bones, and people can't be on too much prednisone for too long. If you want to see what this looks like, just look at any overtrained triathlete and you will see they are starting to go gaunt and deficient if they really don't know what they're doing. On lab, this person comes with low white blood cell, low DHEA, testosterone's little cousin, a mild anabolic, and low testosterone unless they're supplementing with those hormones. So I can always use labs as the truth serum to talk to my overtrained athletes and say, you're in chronic inflammation, your white blood cells are crashing, your DHEA and testosterone are in the toilet, and we need to come up with a better balanced regimen. There's a smart way to train if people have to do that Ironman or Ironwoman. If it's in their heart, we will support them on getting there, but we have to be realistic with what that looks like. Over here we have the anaerobic. This means I'm going to reach the point where your breathing cannot keep up with your energy production. Think of a CrossFit class. Eventually you're going to say, oh my gosh, I cannot keep up with the oxygen demand to make 38 ATP, and I'm going to go into what's called anaerobic creation of energy or anaerobic respiration in the cell, where I'm making energy without the presence of oxygen. This only gives me 8 ATP for the exact same glucose log burned, but I do produce lactic acid. This is awesome in a healthy person who's doing resistance training. And the reason is that dump of lactic acid binds lactic acid receptors and then floods the body with growth hormones like testosterone and growth hormone for the next 48 hours. And that's why you don't want to do heavy duty resistance training every day. If you're doing something like CrossFit or you're doing something like high intensity training, it should be an every other day thing. On your alternate days, walking, swimming, yoga, if you have to do some movement. So that's the difference between your anaerobic and aerobic. Next week, we're going to talk about how someone with CIRS, chronic inflammatory response syndrome, secondary to mold or Lyme, feels like they're constantly in lactic acid buildup because they don't get enough oxygen to the cell from capillary hypoperfusion. So if someone's in apnea, if someone's in anemia, if someone's in low blood pressure or hypotension or capillary hypoperfusion from something like mold or Lyme illness, they never get enough oxygen to their cell and they're walking to the mailbox and building up lactic acid. But in a healthy person, you're going to do a resistance program. 7 minutes is all you need on this. And you can do a 30-minute CrossFit as well, but you don't need to overdo that. Who makes a good triathlete? The good triathlete is the more substantial body type. That's my older brother. He came out of the womb able to lift a Volkswagen, right? These are the people who just They're sturdy. You want them on your team for tug of war. If they haven't worked out in 3 years, they can just pull everybody over. And they do very well as aerobic athletes because they have substance on their body to break into, and it's very balancing in that Chinese model of yin and yang. They're very yin, and the yang burn down catabolism of this will balance their body. What do they like to do? They like to put as much weight on the bar and do all this big gross lifting that's really not healthy for them. They need to become more sprinty and swift, like a hummingbird. They are the tortoise, this is the hare. Over here, the thin and lanky person, what do they like to do? They love triathlons. They love to run and run and run. They look gaunt and washed out, almost like they're suffering anorexia at certain points in our clinic, and you want to just give them a bowl of soup and nurture and rebuild their body. This body type, which is me, I'm more thin and lanky. I need to go do resistance training. I like to do jiu-jitsu. I like to do short CrossFit workouts to maintain lean muscle mass. I also ski and do a lot of cardio stuff, but it's imperative that I do resistance training to hold lean muscle mass and build up that yin. So lifting, resistance training, and CrossFit is not unhealthy. The ego is unhealthy. So when I go do CrossFit over at Boulder Athletics, I often will use a PVC bar, and I will not put weight until I have the form properly. So if you're putting on weight before you master form, you're hurting yourself, not CrossFit hurting yourself. So a lot of these lifting systems are perfect. It's just that people's egos get in the way and they want to do more. And then this more substantial body type wants to get going on the cardio lifting. Remember, an overtrained athlete has the same heart attack potential as a couch potato. And that's because overtraining without proper recovery is inflammatory, and the root of heart disease is inflammation wherever it comes from, including the source of overtraining. And also, for heart attack prevention, 3 30-minute walks a week is all you need. So as you're getting back into exercise, if you're coming off the couch, be kind, start small, and stay consistent. We'll see you next week for Dr. G's Health Tip of the Week.